goes my water.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. I can see everybody joining. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. It's going to be a really, really important discussion on pooled special need trusts. And so we'll just wait a little bit until more people log on.
Oh my goodness. This is not good, Harper. Hi,
Oh,
sweet.
is Harper being fun?
Yeah. She's drinking my water.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Oh, funny, funny. Okay, we're almost ready to
All
get
right, you
started.
go to sleep. Lie down. Lie down.
To everybody who's watching, we are sharing the webinar with the local, well, not the local, Joanne's puppy. All right. All right, here we go. All right, so let's go ahead and get started.
Here she is.
And are you showing the puppy? Very nice. Very nice. Okay, so thank you everybody for watching us today. And we are very happy that we are being joined by our presenters. And I will let our presenters tell us a little bit about themselves. And we can start with Joanne.
Good afternoon, and it's really an honor to be here, and I just appreciate the opportunity to share information about an organization that I love, and I love the work that we do. I'm Joanne Marcus. I have a master's degree in social work, and I'm executive director of Commonwealth Community Trust, and I was hired as the first executive director back in 2000 by the board of directors, and it's been a joy, really, ever since. And over time, we have really grown, and that's very exciting. As I said, I have a master's degree in social work, so all of my career really has been working in nonprofit organizations and leading actually nonprofit organizations. So I came to CCT with a lot of experience, and really, truly, it's just been a joy. So nice to meet everyone, and now turn it over to Sue to introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sue Colvin. It's so great to be with you all today. I am a parent of a 24-year-old. It's hard to believe our kids are growing up so quick, but a 24-year-old daughter born with Spina Bifida. So I was invited on this call to just kind of share my story. So again, nice to meet everyone, and I'm really excited to hear and learn about pooled trust today as well.
And my name is Juanita. I'm just the narrator that you can't see. But today, what Joanne is going to share with us, she's going to talk about the types of special needs trusts. And Sumit is going to talk about reasons why families might want to consider establishing a trust. And then Joanne, the expert who knows, lives, breathes, dreams, pooled special needs trusts she's gonna discuss what those elements are. And please feel free to send in your questions anytime during the presentation. We will be sure to answer them. And the way that you do that is, if for those of you who are, who also have the video, you should be able to see like some kind of a control panel, and the Q&A button, just click on the Q&A button, and then that's how you are able to ask your questions. So without further ado, Joanne, please tell us a little bit more about Commonwealth Community Trust.
CCT is a nonprofit organization, and that's really important because the founders of CCT, concerned parents and professionals, established the organization back in 1990, and it was board driven. And the reason why they wanted to have a nonprofit organization administer special needs trusts is they felt like it was an important option to the for-profit options. And so they set about creating this entity and managed it for 10 years. But they also had a son or daughter with a disability and work to earn a living. So it was challenging. And then at some point they said, okay, we really need to hire a staff person. So that's when they hired me. And we have grown in the pretty much since 2000 to serving over 1,700 trust beneficiaries nationwide, because we are a national pool trust. And you will learn a lot today, and don't get overwhelmed if you feel that you're missing something. Our website is very comprehensive, and I would encourage you to just visit our website, where a lot of excellent information is available to you. So we've served, a whole lot of beneficiaries. A lot of our trusts are not yet funded because the parents or grandparents who set it up don't fund it until their death. And so it's for the future. They set it up for the future. And we're there for them, but we don't expect any funding until such time as they determine when they want to fund the trust. So we collaborate a lot with attorneys and family members and financial planners and beneficiaries and any other stakeholders in setting up the trust and administering the trust. We're very, very fortunate to have an exceptional professional staff. And because I have a master's degree in social work, I'm kind of biased to social workers and their frame of reference. It is a helping profession and service oriented. And so that is who we are. And we're very, very fortunate with the staff that we have. So we have master's level social workers working with families. We have a licensed clinical social worker on staff. And we have a wonderful, experienced trust and estate attorney. And she is the director of client services. Again, I encourage you to just kind of relax and listen, because there's so much information on our website, and don't feel pressured to learn everything in this one thing. It's a lot of information. It can feel overwhelming. And our website is trustcct.org. So yeah, the next slide, I think, is, we're ready for that. Yes. So we're talking about the two types of third-party trusts, and one that I am not as experienced with, because we do not administer individual standalone trusts. We only administer pooled trusts. But an individual trust is typically administered by a family member or a for-profit institution. And I'm sure, again, it's something for families to determine which direction they want to go. And I encourage families always to make the decision that works for them. So there are differences in terms of who files taxes and the regulatory filings, and also just the knowledge, and you want to be very careful about this, of does that entity or person, if the beneficiary is receiving means-tested government benefits such as SSI or Medicaid, do they have that knowledge not to jeopardize those benefits? That is so important, and something that we do. I mean, again, we eat, live, and sleep administering special needs trusts. And so we are always up to date on what the rules are to protect these means-tested government benefits, such as SSI and Medicaid. And those rules change. And I will tell you, we have contacts that we can call, and we're always, well, something always stymies us. And is this, is this allowable? So, and, it's nice, we can call someone in the Medicaid office or the SSI office and say, tell me about this. And that has turned out to be extremely helpful. So we have those contacts that help us to make sure we don't jeopardize these benefits. And that isn't to say that there aren't times when it makes sense to, like for SSI, you're not supposed to pay for food or shelter. And it might make sense to go ahead and make a disbursement for a shelter expense or electricity, room and board, just because you don't want the beneficiary to be out on the street. So, there's certainly times when in emergency situations or situations where it makes sense, we will do that. We understand the consequences, and the person that we're working with, the beneficiary or the beneficiary's advocate, will also understand what the consequences are of paying those expenses, but we will do it. So we have that expertise, and all of our beneficiaries have a disability, and we do all the tax returns and filings. So that's, for the nonprofit. Now, for the individual, we send out a K-1, and we ask that they take that K-1 to a tax preparer, because we may not know the individual's situation to file taxes on their behalf. So that is, our role is to mail out the K-1s, which we do. So again, we're just, sharing just kind of the difference between the individual and the pooled special needs trust. The key issue around the world word pooled is the funds are pooled for investment purposes. And really how that translates to folks considering a pooled trust and what I think are the advantages is that the fees are less, and to me it's like this, and the opportunity for growth is greater because the funds are pooled into this one. I think of it as this huge mutual fund, but each account is maintained separately. So people can go to our website, click on the website portal that brings the individual to their own account and see all the activity in their trust. They can see deposits, they can see disbursements, they can see a quarterly statement. They can even actually make a request for a disbursement on our website in the client's own portal. But again, all that information is kept very separate and very confidential. But so the advantage of the pool funds for us is at this point in time, we have around $70 million in funded trusts. And as I said, a lot of the third-party trusts are not funded yet. So it's really this big sum of money that gets invested, and I think it feels to me very safe. The other advantage is we have a board of directors, and on that board, we have expertise in investments. So it's a whole group overseeing and making sure that the entity that is managing and investing the funds for us is doing the right job. So there's lots of layers of what I think are safeguards. So next slide. And I believe you, Juanita, you're gonna, or Sue, you're gonna speak to this this slide. Sue, you will speak to this slide. Thank you.
Yes, yes. So hello again, everybody. Again, my name is Sue Minton Colvin. And again, my husband and I went through the process to set up a special needs trust about a year ago. But it's something that we have been debating for quite some time. You know, it seems like these kids grow up so quick. And we started getting really concerned about, okay, if something were to happen and both he and I were to die at the same time, you know, who is going to take care of her? Who's going to look out for her best interest? You know, who's going to make sure that she gets what she needs and doesn't take advantage of the situation? And, you know, how do we make sure that, you know, Medicaid doesn't take all the money and SSI for past support that they've provided? And how do we maintain that she continues that support as she moves on through her adult world? So we knew for a long time we wanted to set up a special needs trust, but really did not know how. So we unfortunately didn't have a type of program like CCT to be able to reach out to. It's just something that we didn't know of. We're from Kentucky, in Georgetown, Kentucky. So we just reached out to local attorneys in the Lexington area. They're pretty close to us. And, you know, but with it, we had to basically put, you know, our trust in the attorney to just say, this is what our fears are. This is what we're concerned about. How do you set something up to make sure that she's protected? Up until that point, I can tell you all, I can't speak for what you all have experienced, but for us, we got to the point to where we just put all of our beneficiaries as my oldest daughter. I have two daughters. And so Sarah was getting 100% of everything if we were to die. Now, of course, she knew 50% of that is to care for Alex, and all of our family knew. However, unfortunately, in any family dynamic, there can be something crazy happen. And then Alex there is not taken care of. So again, we felt a lot more confident to be able to create a trust to take the worries from us. So if something were to happen, like I said, she's at least taken care of. She gets what she needs, you know, and we know in the end, the way the laws are worked, that if something were to happen and we're gone, and then Alex leaves and there's money still in the trust, that Medicaid and Social Security do get their cut in the end, but not while she's still alive, you know, so she is taken care of at the level that she needs to. And, you know, I can tell you all the hardest part for us too, after we got it set up, or, you know, just at least from the attorney, then we had to go find a place to create the account. And again, we don't have a lot of choices around where we live, but we went through a credit union, and just trying to go through the paperwork and trying to get these accounts set up, it was pretty mind-numbing, you know. So again, CCT was not a program that we knew about, unfortunately. So we kind of went through the long process and the costly process to get it set up. But I'm here to tell you, it's definitely been worthwhile. Not that I anticipate my husband and I meeting our demise at the same time, but at least that worry is off, because it is very scary knowing our kids. And I know she's an adult, but she will always be my kid. Knowing she wants to be an independent person and she wants to do a lot of things herself. I know at least financially she's going to be okay. And the people that are maintaining the trust, I have full trust in them to make sure she's taken care of as well. But again, I was just wanting to share my journey with the Special Needs Trust, and it is a scary one, but I'm here to tell you once that we got it done, it is a relief. So I'm glad we did it. So that's my story.
And Sue, I can totally relate to your peace of mind for having moved forward in this decision-making process, because I know how difficult it is and how parents struggle. And it takes time to come to terms with the fact that you're not always going to be here. And then what happens? And it's just, you know, an emotional challenge to get through. And once you do that, it's just such a relief. And at that point, I've had parents say to me, well, now we can fly together, you know.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
That is so true.
So anyway, whatever the decisions are, I would just like you to encourage, you know, the folks that are listening to begin to seriously think about setting up a special needs trust. I think we're ready for the next slide. So we, you know, we already talked really about the fact that we're a nonprofit and this is what we do. And it's, you know, pooled special needs trust administration. And you know, a lot of folks, but not all of our beneficiaries receive SSI and Medicaid. A lot of folks don't receive government benefits, but they're not, you know, in a position of the beneficiary of managing their own trust. Some are, and when they are, we will do that. And so I think something happened on my computer. Oh my God, cancel. Can you all still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Again, not all of our beneficiaries receive SSI or means tested government benefits. They get sometimes SSDI and Medicare, or SSI and Medicare. I mean, it just varies, but depending upon the individual. So it's just, you know, it's irrelevant to us. As a nonprofit organization, our only criteria is that the person that we serve, the beneficiary, has a disability. So, let me see if I can. Okay. So the next slide is, you know, so who we are, and the most important thing I think that we do is we use the funds the parents or families entrust to us to make disbursements on behalf of the beneficiary. And so one of, you know, our criteria is, you know, is this in the best interest of the beneficiary? We also ask families to give us a letter of intent or fill out, I mean, it's a really comprehensive document that asks for all kinds of information that we set up on our, you know, in our database so that we know what the intent of the family is. If you think about the fact that the trust typically is funded upon the death of the parents, you're not there as a resource, but your written word is. And you can set up the trust now, provide us with a letter of intent and the information asked. And over time, that's going to change. We expect it to, and encourage you to update the information as needed. So we because we're a national pool trust, so we have clients all over the country, we don't necessarily and really don't have face-to-face interaction with the beneficiary. So we have someone that we identify as the advocate, or the family identifies as the advocate. So that can be a sibling, anyone that's trusted and close to the beneficiary can be an advocate. So we don't say it has to be a guardian or it has to be a POA or a conservator. We're not dictating who the advocate is. It can also be the beneficiary, him or herself, because they know what their needs are. And if they're capable of communicating that to us, we're happy to work with the beneficiary. But sometimes it's an advocate, again, who is close to the beneficiary. Some families will say, well, I really don't have anyone to name as an advocate. And that's fine, because then we will find a case manager to be the interface with us and work closely with that entity. And sometimes it's a nonprofit organization or something like that, that will enable us to get to understand what the needs of the beneficiary are. But we, as the trust administrators, it's our job to be the decision makers. And so that's important. And all the information that families can give us is very helpful. Next slide, please. I don't know how to get back to that. Okay. We already talked about the definition of a pool trust and each person having their own sub-account and the advantages of the lower fees and authorized parties having access to the financial statements and all kinds of information. So it's really, our portal is amazing. Let's go to the next slide. So the two types of, slides, the primary types of slides that we administer are the third-party trust, and that's the one that the family set up. It's a third party, so the money is coming from a third party. And that's the distinction between a third party and a first party. Like I always say, whose money is it? And if it's a parent, the parent's money, or the grandparents, or a friend, or a sibling, it's a third-party trust. When it's a first-party trust, it's the beneficiary's own money. And sometimes families know not to leave money directly to the beneficiary, but sometimes they don't. And so when that happens, it becomes the beneficiary's own money, and then they can lose their Medicaid or SSI, or they can put it into CCT's first party trust. So I wanted to include that information. And also, if the beneficiary receives a personal injury award or a workers' comp award, again, that's the beneficiary's own money, or they have their own money in a savings account or checking account or investment account. Again, that's typical of how funds come into the first party trust. So I just wanted you all to be aware of the distinction between the first and third party. People set up the trust to fund it. And some people say, well, I don't have a lot of money, and that's fine. Believe it or not, our minimum is $5,000. Which in the trust world is a very small amount of money. But, that's not typical. We have certainly accounts in the millions and millions of dollars. So it can go anywhere from very small to quite large in terms of funding. And people fund it through their estate plan. So they work closely with an attorney, a life insurance policy, which is great to do, and any type of investment accounts or work account that you have, where you can designate who would get the remainder. It's the nice part about setting up a third-party special needs trust is that until funded, it's revocable. So some miracle happens and the funds are really, the third-party trust is not needed. And that's great. Or people change their minds. If you set it up with us, you check a box that lets you revoke the third-party trust if that's a decision to be made. And for the first-party trust, that is a government rule that it is not revocable. So it's not a CCT rule, it's a government rule that we follow, and it's not revocable. And the first-party trust is also a Medicaid payback trust, but the third party is not. So those are really important distinctions between the two types of trusts. And I think I'm trying to get through all the slides. So let's move on to the next slide. So we've talked a bit about the advocate and how important the advocate is. We've also talked about different options as to who can be an advocate. And it's really important to think about that and also communicate to us. Well, I named my cousin to be an advocate, but my cousin has changed her mind and no longer wants to be in that role. And we'll talk about it and work together to figure out who would be a suitable advocate for the beneficiary. Again, once the trust is funded and the grantor, that's the person who's setting up the trust, is no longer here, then we work to make sure that every beneficiary has a responsible and trusted advocate. So it's not something to worry about. And yeah, let's move on to the next slide. The importance of setting up the trust and funding the trust is really enriching the quality of life for the beneficiary and making sure that they have what they need. And we will certainly take into consideration the grantor's vision for the trust and in our disbursement decision making. So that's just what we do. We meet as staff at least twice a week and more often if needed to talk about our clients and their situations. The more challenging ones, the easy ones, pay my cell phone, that's fine. But there are always those situations that rise to the top, and we sit together and discuss disbursement decisions. And that's the social work staff doing that. Again, we, have, a really very responsible role in all aspects of our work, and managing and investing the funds is also critical for the long-term health and well-being of the trust and how long it lasts and this and that. So we do our best in that area and are fortunate to have that expertise on our board. So again, if people don't have access to the internet, it's not a problem. I know I've spoken a great deal about access to our website and the benefits of having access, but not everyone has access to the internet. And so we send out quarterly statements and are available on the telephone. So when you call CCT, you don't get an answering machine, you get a person. Again, our interest is personalized service. And to me, answering the phone is extremely important. And I don't like it myself when I call an entity and I have to push some buttons and, and I'm going, oh my God. But, I mean, there could be a time when you get a button to push, but that's because we're in a staff meeting and we really stagger lunches and do everything we can to answer the phone and answer people's questions. So let's move on.
And Joanne, I'm going to interrupt for just a second. You mentioned in this section and earlier, you mentioned a K1.
Yes.
And we don't know what that is. At least I don't.
It's a tax form. So it identifies, I mean, we have our investment firm create the K1. That's not something that CCT does. And it's based on how much has been dispersed from the trust. And so if the beneficiary hasn't used the trust in a year, they will not get a K1. But if they have, they will get a K1. And because we do not have accountants on staff, we instruct the advocate, again, whoever the advocate is, the beneficiary, the family member, the case manager, to get help. And we always, talk to an accountant or a tax preparer if they have any questions, because that happens not to be our expertise. And believe me, you don't want me giving you tax advice. So we generate the form, and then it's up to the individual to take the next step. I hope that was helpful.
Yes, it was. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to the next slide now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
Sure. And we talked again, there are various ways of funding the trust. And again, I always encourage people who think they have not a whole lot of money to fund a special needs trust to not worry about it with a nonprofit organization. And whatever amount they have is going to make a difference in the beneficiary's life. It may not last their whole lives, because that's, if it's depending upon the needs, but it will make a difference in the quality of their life. So I'm typically asked, what can we do when our loved one has a special needs trust? What can it pay for? So we just created this list, and it's pretty, it's a pretty comprehensive list, but it's still not everything. I really like when the trust can pay for things that directly relate to the beneficiary's disability. That to me is so important that we can do that. But the day-to-day living needs are also important, and we're there for that too. It's all, again, the larger trusts, you have a whole lot more wiggle room. The smaller trusts, becomes a more of a challenge. And again, we can't really say that it's going to last for the lifetime of the beneficiary, but it will make a significant difference, again, depending upon the amount that's in the trust. So you see, I mean, vacations can be taken. And some people, I had a mother say to me, I am funding this trust, and all I want the trust to be used for is for my child to be able to take vacations. That is what is most important to me. And it was just really interesting to hear that from a parent, because that's the first time I've ever heard that. Usually it's more basic needs to be attended to. So I thought that was really interesting. And again, we will document that desire of the parent and make sure that it's a variable when we look at disbursement requests. So it's really nice looking at this list to really see what a trust, how effective and how important a special needs trust is. We also, take on somewhat of well, definitely a proprietary role in the decision-making process, of course, but also some people will say, oh, I want to buy a car and here's the bill for the car. Well, we'll ask for lots of information about the vehicle and make sure that that really is the best decision. Not necessarily to buy a vehicle, that is one decision, but once that decision is made, what would be given how much money is in the trust and given other variables, what type of vehicle, and also making sure we get the, what's it called? The Carfax, yep. And we look at that, and so, and also, and lots of, and again, all the information about the vehicle. So we're very, in housing too, some people say, I really want to buy a house, and that could be the best use of the trust. But we go through many, many steps to get to that point, and a lot of information is provided to us along the way. So, we're intimately involved in all of that. So, talking about the decision-making process, we look at,
It's one
information.
we're putting on is about special needs trust, so it's an important one, but I'm not very.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Okay. So we look at, is this request prudent? And that's, one of,
Oh, that's your weekly reach?
all of our, the thing that guides us is the request prudent. We look at if the beneficiary is receiving SSI and Medicaid, would this disbursement jeopardize those benefits? And that's really important, especially Medicaid. Some people will say SSI is not as important as Medicaid. And we think SSI is important too. And so we'll look at whether the request will jeopardize those benefits. And then we're kind of a stickler on the trust being used for the benefit of the beneficiary, particularly if they get SSI and Medicaid. That is a rule. So there's very little flexibility for beneficiaries receiving means-tested government benefits. But for folks that don't get those benefits, and if the grantor says, I know at Christmas time, the beneficiary is going to want to buy presents for family members, we will certainly look at that and, with a different eye than we would for folks getting SSI and Medicaid. And then, the last is the request consistent with the intent of the grantor? And again, that's your opportunity or the family's opportunity to give us their vision for the trust. I hope y'all can hear me. We are having a really big thunderstorm right now. And so I'm going to move quickly. So again, we're here, and I think you can see how beneficial a pooled special needs trust is, and to set it up, whether it's a pooled special needs trust or an individual setup. That's your decision, but I think it's important to do it. So, especially around benefit protection and other areas, that when you think about a pooled trust, these are advantages that I think we offer to families. And so it's, you know, the lower fees and working with advocates and, again, benefits. So next slide, the instructions, because this is helpful. So the grantor is setting up the trust, and again, we're asking, this is not a requirement, by the way, it's just helpful for a letter of intent. And we do have a document on our website. When you go to the third party trust tab, you will see a whole lot of information, but you can also see the family and beneficiary information form. And it's not required, but it's helpful. And the letter of intent is included in there. Update it as often as you want, because we know that things change over time. So as families look at next steps, would be, you know, what resources do we need to put together to fund the trust? If we're funding it through our will or our estate plan, you have to meet with, I recommend an attorney that is familiar with drafting special needs trusts. Not all trust and estate attorneys have that expertise, so you want to make sure that whoever you choose has that expertise. We're also here, we have an attorney on staff, not to draft the documents, that's not our role, but if your attorney has questions and we can be helpful, we're glad to be helpful. And once you've drafted your will or the estate plan, you want to make sure that all the documents that relate to the funding of the trust are updated and the correct designations are in those documents. And then we'll remind you, if you're with CCT, to periodically, as things change, to make sure that the information is updated. So that's something we will help you to do. Next slide. Again, if the decision is to come with CCT, and we're happy, you know, to answer your questions and call us and talk with us. And I would, again, highly recommend that you just go to our website, click around, and all over the website, the Who We Are section, there's just a wealth of information. But ultimately, the third party trust tab is where you're going to want to go in setting up a trust that you, the grantor, are funding. And if it's the beneficiary funding the trust because of a personal injury award or funds available to them, then it's the first party trust tab. So I always tell people just to go straight to the process of joining, because that walks you through everything and makes it pretty simple. And there's a checkoff list. Mm-hmm. So in that tab, the process of joining, there's the joinder agreement and the fee schedule is in there, the family and beneficiary information, which we talked about. And actually the disbursement information manual is in there. And that is just amazing. Just go to it, just click disbursement information, and it really gives you the process of how to request a disbursement. We make it simple, so don't get overwhelmed by the number of pages. A lot of it is just sharing with you our philosophy, but it's the actual form is one-sided. Name of the beneficiary, account number, who do we make the check payable to, how much, what is it for, and, you know, just basic information like that, that comes along with a bill or a receipt. And so that disbursement information manual is extremely helpful. And I would recommend you look at it. So this gives us a little time for question and answers, I think. So I'm going to turn it over.
Thank you so much, Joanne. We really appreciate it. So we do have a couple of questions. And she was saying, and this is through Facebook Live, she was saying that her daughter has a special needs trust. She is her daughter is 24, and she's about to graduate from engineering school.
Wow.
And so her question was, and unfortunately, because it's through Facebook Live, we can't probe what her question is, but her question is, how should she proceed with her finances?
I'm not sure that she is, I mean, I would really like to talk with her further. If her daughter is not able to manage her own funds, then that's when she would, and she feels at some point, and I work with a lot of folks, parents who have a child with a mental illness. Again, I don't know, you know, what this situation is. Clearly, a college graduate has the potential of earning a living, but there may be something in this situation that's causing the family concern, and they can certainly set up a third-party special needs trust for that daughter, because they have concerns about her ability to earn a living or to manage her own funds. And I would just recommend you call me or go to the website. Happy to talk with her or him.
And we do have another question, and again, I'm not really able to follow up, but the question is, does this also apply to married adults? And this is from a woman, and she says that they don't have kids, her husband is older, and he's the primary income. She says, at some point, I won't have anyone to help me as I keep getting older if my husband passes before I do. She says, we have a retirement, but it's small. So, you know, I don't know if this is her situation, but since she can't respond right now, I'm just going to guess that possibly the person who asked the question has spina bifida or another disability. So yeah, so like, would this work if you are married, don't have kids, and you have spina bifida or another disability and your husband passes away?
Right. Again, I always like to refer people to attorneys, and the attorney can gather, again, with this expertise, and the attorney can really determine their resources, because I don't get into the attorney role. You can ask me any question about CCT and how we operate, but setting up a trust and looking at all the variables about the family situation or the couple's situation would really require an attorney to be involved.
Okay, great. Thank you. And she just replied, and yes, she does have spina bifida, and she's very proud of it. Here's another question actually that just came in. Can you fund the special needs trusts with SSI funds?
No. That's a hard and fast rule. Government rule, not our rule.
Okay. Well, that seemed pretty straightforward. That was just a no. And just another person mentioned that, and I don't think he had a follow-up question, but basically he was just saying that he has, or his family set up a special needs trust for him. And I think he said he was in his 50s. So yeah, so it's, you know, definitely some people definitely have had set up those trusts. There is another, go ahead, sorry.
No, that's good to hear.
And there is another question, which again, I apologize because I'm probably not understanding it correctly, but is how will you know if one person has spina bifida? So my guess is, as you're setting it up, this is just my guess, as you're setting it up, like how, what information do you provide to show that the person has spina bifida?
Yeah, so it's helpful to us just to have some documentation, whatever the family can glean, whether it's from the child, the individual's physician is fine, or school, but again, with a third party trust, again, our criteria is the individual has to have a disability, but we're not that fussy about documentation. It's just helpful, and we will ask for it.
Okay.
But it's not necessarily required.
Okay. Thank
But
you.
it is helpful.
Does it make things go smoother or faster?
No, it's just helpful in our understanding. So how can I say, a lot of folks, we ask on the joint agreement the nature of the disability. And so people might identify a disability, but leave out that the person also might be bipolar, or have some other, suffer from depression. And it's just really helpful to us to have a medical professional's documentation that hopefully would encompass, the nature of the individual's disability or disabilities.
Okay. And we do have another question. She says, hello, I'm a single female with spina bifida, and my parents have already established a living trust, but we have never heard of a special needs trust until now. Should they look into a special needs trust? Are there features covered under a special needs trust that a living trust would not answer?
Again, I would probably advise the parents to go to an attorney, but this much I can say for sure: a special needs trust protects government benefits and, is in the decision-making role. So that's a decision that the family has to make. Okay. I don't know if the individual at any point in time may apply for particularly SSI and Medicaid, or at any point in time may not be able to manage their own funds. And, that is something that we can do. So I would, again, suggest just going to an attorney, but someone that really works in this special needs area.
And so how would you, let's just say then that you've never done a search for that before, like what would be a way to do a search for a legit attorney that works in a special needs area?
So the Special Needs Alliance on their website has a list of attorneys that do this work, and you can trust that list. It's a good list.
Excellent, good to know. And we will be sure to include that in our resources that we provide. And so we didn't have time to put this up on our slide, but we will make sure that we share this on our website, or everybody who registered will get an email at the end of this presentation with the link telling you where you can go for the recordings and resources, including what Joanne just shared about the Special Needs Alliance. It's 3. How did that happen? It's been 1 hour, and I don't see any more questions, but if anybody has any more questions, please feel free to reach out to the Spina Bifida Association, and I'll send you, you'll see the information in just a second, but I wanted to also let you know about a couple of, the presentation, when you access the archives of, in the presentation on our website, you'll see just these links to additional information. And we will also include the Special Needs Alliance in this list. And
if you don't mind, can I just give folks my email address?
oh, of course, please, please do. And let me see, I don't know if it's, yes, please do give people your email address, and we'll make sure that we include it in the link, in the email as well.
Thank you, because that is a great way of reaching me and asking questions, and you know, sometimes it's just helpful to do it that way. Our website does offer the contact us section where you can also make contact, and it also on the website you can find my email. But let me give it to you. It's JMARCUS@trustcct.org as a nonprofit.
Great. Thank you very much. And yeah, and then this information will be available on our website as well. So it's spinabifidaassociation.org. And then from there, you would go into, you would search for, maybe just go to the search bar and look and type in Special Needs Trust, and then that should take you to the page. And if you can't find it, if you have any issues, please just send a message to sbaa@sbaa.org. But just want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank Sue Minton so much for sharing your experience and why you made that decision, which can be kind of a challenging decision to make, and sort of it's seemingly daunting. But Joanne, thank you so much for clearing this up to help us feel a little bit more comfortable getting the process, this important process started.
Wonderful. It was my pleasure, and I'm here for you all. So let me know if I can be of any assistance.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sue Minton. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you, Juanita.
Thank you, everybody. All right, well, so we'll see you guys the next time. Take care. Have a nice rest of the day.
Done.